Hello friends, welcome to Star Explainer. Tales of Herding Gods Part 381 explains based on novel. So let's start explanation. The aim behind the formation of the Heaven Alliance was to overthrow the rule of the ancient gods, to overthrow heaven, which referred to the ancient gods during the Dragon Han era. Back then, as the leader of the Heaven Alliance, Celestial Venerable Yun had to unite all forces, regardless of whether they were half-gods or life forms after the beginning. As long as they had the same will to overthrow the ancient gods, they could join the Heaven Alliance. By the time they eliminated the ancient Celestial Emperor, the power of the Heaven Alliance had increased greatly, and finally, one day, Celestial Venerable Yun realized that when they overthrew heaven, they also became heaven. However, by that time, he was already helpless to turn the present Heaven Alliance around, and he became an obstacle to the Heaven Alliance in their pursuit to rule over the world. He was aware that his death was definite, and thus, for the future, he created a plan that would be carried out by Tao Ancestor on his behalf. Celestial Venerable Yun was trying to make use of the ancient Celestial Emperor to divide the Heaven Alliance. If it was necessary, the ancient Celestial Emperor could also be exposed so that the Heaven Alliance would temporarily give up on suppressing the lower bound and shift their attention to fighting the ancient Celestial Emperor instead. Tao Ancestor continued, by doing that, the lower bound would have a chance to develop. Qin Mu's heart trembled violently. Celestial Venerable Yun truly had great foresight. The Heaven Alliance wouldn't allow the ancient Celestial Emperor to be revived no matter the circumstances. Only when the ancient Celestial Emperor was dead would they be invincible. If the ancient Celestial Emperor was revived, all their efforts would be for naught. This was because any of the other ancient gods had their own shortcomings and weaknesses, and they also had to follow the rules of the Great Tao. However, the ancient Celestial Emperor didn't. He wasn't restrained by the Great Tao of heaven and earth. This sort of Celestial Emperor was the most terrifying. If they knew that the ancient Celestial Emperor hadn't been completely eliminated, that his soul had reincarnated and infiltrated into the 10 Celestial Venerables, the alliance that was formed by them would immediately crumble and disintegrate. If they knew who the ancient Celestial Emperor was, they would drop all the grudges amongst themselves to come together and eliminate him. Then, during the outbreak of the Eternal Peace Calamity, why didn't Tao Ancestor announce the identity of the ancient Celestial Emperor? Qin Mu questioned. He felt a pang of sorrow in his heart. So many had died during the calamity of eternal peace, and it was also his most helpless period, his most demoralizing period. He was almost unable to recover from this setback, but for the sake of those who had survived, he too had pulled through and walked out a brand new path. However, if Tao Ancestor had announced the identity of the ancient Celestial Emperor back then, and diverted the attention towards the ancient Celestial Emperor instead, perhaps the calamity of eternal peace wouldn't have occurred. Tao Ancestor shook his head. It wasn't the right time. Qin Mu's voice was hoarse. Not the right time. Then when will be considered the right time? How many lives must be taken before it's the right time? Tao Ancestor had a deep gaze. During the founding Emperor Calamity, I didn't expose the ancient Celestial Emperor, and the Eternal Peace Calamity wasn't the right time either. The crucial problem here is that the abilities of the ancient Celestial Emperor aren't sufficient to go up against the Heaven Alliance of today. To pit him alone against the other 9, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. After he dies, the lower bound won't have any capabilities or measures to resist the Heaven Alliance. The life forms after the beginning need to have sufficient abilities to go against the Heaven Alliance, and the ancient Celestial Emperor must also have sufficient abilities to tear the Heaven Alliance apart. Only then will it be the best time. His expression was apathetic. As the executor of Celestial Venerable Yun's plan, I have to be completely rational and wait for this moment to arrive. Before that, regardless of the number of deaths, I still have to continue waiting. Qin Mu was silent for a moment. Which celestial venerable is the ancient celestial emperor? Celestial Venerable Mu, I won't reveal it to you. Tao Ancestor continued with a calm expression, you aren't suitable to be the executor of Celestial Venerable Yun's plan. You are too rash, and you tend to reveal your aces in a moment of spite. But I will not. I am able to ignore the deaths of billions. You are a Celestial Venerable who is held in high esteem by many. Celestial Venerable, you don't have to carry this foul reputation and these sins. Such sins and such a foul reputation are to be borne by the executor of Celestial Venerable Yun's plans. His old face revealed a trace of a smile. I have been preparing for this for over 500,000 years. Celestial Venerable Mu, don't steal my credit. Qin Mu clasped his hands and bowed to the ground, and Tao Ancestor hurriedly returned his bow. I'm just a reckless brute, a nobody. By some stroke of fate and chance, I transmigrated to the first year of the Dragon Han era, and was merely lucky to be able to meet the seniors and distinguished predecessors of that era, even eventually becoming a Celestial Venerable. Yet, I hold the title of Celestial Venerable with nothing to back it up. I accomplished nothing before I returned to the present times. Qin Mu sighed ruefully. Comparatively, you have all fought for your cause, sacrificing yourselves and bleeding for it. I am unworthy of the title of Celestial Venerable, it is you all who are worthy of it. Tao Ancestor replied, imparting the way to become a god and letting the world know that there is still a celestial heavens realm. Just this alone makes you worthy of the title of Celestial Venerable. Moreover, what Celestial Venerable has done isn't limited to this. Celestial Venerable Mu, perhaps you should leave the celestial heavens soon. Qin Mu jolted slightly, not knowing what he meant. Tao Ancestor continued, Celestial Venerable How has come to visit me to inquire about something. He asked if it was possible to make use of the creation, divine weapon in the Patriarch Creation Palace to forge a Celestial Venerable Mu. He wanted me to create a Celestial Venerable Mu. At the Jade Pool incident the other night, I was there too, and I observed you for a long time. A few days ago, I handed over the blueprint of Celestial Venerable Mu to him. Qin Mu was tongue-tied. Tao Ancestor, you. Tao Ancestor replied calmly, even if I hadn't given him the blueprint of Celestial Venerable Mu, he would have been able to find others skilled in algebra to create a Celestial Venerable Mu for him. Thus, I gave it to him. After Celestial Venerable How has made use of the creation, divine weapon to create a new Celestial Venerable Mu, he will find an opportunity to kill you and then replace you with the Celestial Venerable Mu that he created. He will be able to get his revenge and make use of your prestige to do many things. Qin Mu's eyes widened, and he let out a shallow breath. Tao Ancestor continued, to deal with you, the celestial heavens is full of such tricks. Celestial Venerable How looks to be reckless, but is actually very scheming. At the Jade Pool incident that night, he was also there, yet his goal wasn't to kill you but merely to make a show of it to see how many people in the celestial heavens were against him. He has already achieved his goal. I have also recorded data of your corporeal body to create an obedient Celestial Venerable Mu. Qin Mu felt his heart tremble. The Celestial Venerable How that Tao Ancestor spoke of and the Celestial Venerable How in the impression of others seemed to be two different people. Thus, it's time for you to leave the celestial heavens. Tao Ancestor said, I can send you back to the lower bound. Qin Mu composed himself and shook his head. The celestial heavens have yet to be thrown into great disorder, so how can I return? If I suddenly vanish after coming to your place, anyone who is bright enough will be able to tell that it was you who sent me away. I cannot implicate you. He smiled. It's also not that easy for Celestial Venerable How to kill me. I still have something I would like to consult Tao Ancestor on. Does Tao Ancestor know how to get to the Great Void? Tao Ancestor shook his head. Don't cause any trouble, you should still hurry and leave the celestial heavens. Yang and the dragon Qin were currently outside the small temple and conversing with those two toads. The two toads were lazy in nature, and they spoke to them with their eyes buried within their heads flatly. It was only when Yang took out spirit pills to tempt them that their eyes bulged out from their heads. These two toads would definitely taste good. Qi Jiui laughed. Suddenly, the two toads bulged their eyes out and glanced at him. Qi Jiui felt as though he had fallen into an icy pit, and all sights vanished before his eyes, leaving only four massive eyes surrounding him. Qin Mu walked out of the temple and gave Qi Jiui, who had stiffened up, a puzzled look. Only then did the apparition, before Qi Jiui's eyes, disappear. He couldn't help but shudder, and there was a shred of fear in his eyes. The abilities of these two toads were far superior to his. The Tao Master of the Celestial Heavens escorted them out of the Jade Pure Celestial Palace. Qin Mu was silent for a while before he said to Yun Chuxiu, "I heard that there's a Patriarch Creation Palace in the Celestial Heavens, and that there's a Creation Divine Weapon there. Can good little sister bring me there to take a look? I intend to use the Patriarch Creation Palace to build a few spirit energy mutual shift bridges, so it will be more convenient to travel between the Celestial Heavens and the lower bound." Yun Chuxiu rolled her eyes at him and then burst out giggling. "Calling me good little sister?" Qi Jiui and Yun Jinli felt their hair stand on end as they looked at the other two with terrified expressions. This woman was either Celestial Empress or Mistress Yuan Mu, yet Qin Mu had actually dared to call her good little sister. This Celestial Venerable Mu, who has come up here from the lower bound, do you know how many ways there are to write out the character for death? Yun Jinli's heart suddenly beat violently as he thought to himself, "Oh yes. I also called Yun Chuxiu little sister previously. I am also one who doesn't know death. I better go down to the lower bound soon." Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge. Yun Chuxiu asked curiously, "To make it more convenient to travel between the lower bound and the Celestial Heavens. Is Celestial Venerable not afraid of the gods and devils of the Celestial Heavens going to the lower bound to trample on the living beings of eternal peace?" With a solemn expression, Qin Mu replied, "Eternal peace has already pledged allegiance to the Celestial Heavens. We are subordinates of the Celestial Heavens and are very loyal to the Celestial Heavens. Good little sister, the Celestial Heavens won't go against the honest and faithful. I'll be d*mend if I believe you." Yun Chuxiu burst out giggling, her eyes rolling about mischievously before she replied seriously, "Give the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge blueprint to me, and I will help you forge a few. Opening up the world barrier of the Celestial Heavens and the lower bound is an extremely significant event. You have yet to gain power in the Celestial Heavens, so you won't be able to make decisions on this. It has to be approved by a Celestial Venerable." Qin Mu took out the blueprints for the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge and handed them all to her. The blueprints were numerous and stacked tall. Yun Chuxiu pulled out a few pieces, and upon seeing the algebra runes on them, she couldn't help but frown. Seeing all of these blueprints annoyed her, and she said, "This should still be handed over to the Tao sect. I'll let the Tao sect take these to the Patriarch Creation Palace to build the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridges. Brother, Celestial Venerable, Brother Ju, I'll head off first." She took off quickly with the blueprints and headed towards the Jade Pure Celestial Palace, as she thought to herself, "This Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge is quite useful. It can connect the Celestial Heavens to the other heavens, and it's not limited to only the primordial realm. If these Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridges can be built, then I'll be able to rule over even more heavens and worlds." Qin Mu, Qi Jiui, Yun Jinli, and the others headed towards the Jade Pool instead. Yun Jinli had doubts brewing in his heart, and after suppressing it for a while, he finally asked, "Why did Celestial Venerable hand the Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge blueprints over to Yun Chuxiu? This Spirit Energy Mutual Shift Bridge is of great use, and if the Celestial Heavens and the Primordial Realm are connected, the gods of the celestial heavens can head to the lower bound at a whim, and the primordial realm won't have an opportunity to react. The rule of the celestial heavens will only become even more stable. Qin Mu nodded and smiled. The eternal peace of today is merely a tiny vassal state under the celestial heavens. It's not like we will rebel, so what is there to be afraid of? The doubts in Yun Jinli's heart grew even more. I don't believe that you would be so stupid that you don't know what the spirit energy mutual shift bridge can be used for. What exactly are you planning? Qin Mu didn't reply to him directly. Instead, he smiled and said, with the spirit energy mutual shift bridge, you will be able to go down to the lower bound too. You won't have to stay in the celestial heavens. He had set a future strategy for eternal peace. To resolve the 8 rules that the ancient celestial emperor had set to curb the eternal peace reforms, one of the most crucial plans was to let eternal peace develop its manufacturing side such that it would be able to forge the divine weapons for the celestial heavens. For this to happen, trade routes would have to be opened up. To transport goods from eternal peace to the celestial heavens, even with the Phoenix ship that had incomparable speed, it would take about a year for a round trip. If regular ships were used instead, the round trip might even take 100 years. The spirit energy mutual shift bridge would be able to open up the trade routes, reducing the transportation time for trade between eternal peace and the celestial heavens significantly. This way, eternal peace's path of making use of manufacturing to restore the country would also be considerably shorter. If the spirit energy mutual shift bridges were forged across the innumerous heavens and worlds and trade was opened up, allowing eternal peace to crowd out the manufacturing industries of the other worlds and heavens, then the rebellion of the innumerous heavens and worlds would also happen a lot sooner. However, the spirit energy mutual shift bridge couldn't be built by him. If it was suggested by him, it would only lead to suspicion from the other celestial venerables. The simplest and most effective way around it was to hand it over to Celestial Empress and let her build them instead. After Celestial Empress built the bridge, in order to benefit from it, the other celestial venerables would also start to build the bridges. From there, the innumerous heavens and worlds would be connected, and Qin Mu would have achieved his goal. They had yet to reach the Jade Pool when a god suddenly stood in their way and bowed. Celestial Venerable Mu, Celestial Venerable Hao would like to invite you to the Hao Palace to attend a banquet. Qin Mu's heart jumped, and he sneered. We have a grudge between us, and his banquet is definitely nothing good. I'm not going. The god was taken aback. Qin Mu walked off quickly, and Yang, who was perched on his shoulder, saw that there were many fine goosebumps raised on the back of his neck. This rascal, Celestial Venerable Hao, must have already made use of the creation divine weapon to create another me. Inviting me to the banquet is probably just a front to kill me. They had yet to reach the Jade Pool when another lady came forward. Young Master Yun, Mistress Yun Xiao asks you to return. Yun Jinli had never seen this person before, and he was confused, but he still followed after her and left. After a while, a god under Red Deity of the Southern Heaven blocked their path and bowed. Red Deity misses Young Master, and asks Young Master to return and meet her. Qi Jiui was shocked. My master is here. Isn't she in the lower bound? Second brother, come along with me. The dragon Qilin looked towards Qin Mu. Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly, and he said, just go ahead. Qi Jiui and the dragon Qilin followed after the god and left together. Qin Mu smiled. Later on, there will be someone from South Deity Zhu Qiu's side, who will come and ask Sister Yang to go and meet South Deity. Yang was puzzled, and she laughed. How do you know that? Qin Mu didn't answer. After a period of time, another goddess really came forward, smiling. Princess Yang, South Deity misses you. She asked me to come and invite the princess to return and meet her. Yang looked at Qin Mu, and Qin Mu nodded his head gently. The meeting of a mother and daughter is important, it must not be delayed. Yang followed after the goddess and left. Qin Mu returned to the jade pool, going back to the slow winding pavilion. Awaiting his arrival was another Qin Mu, who was standing in the pavilion with his hands behind his back. Qin Mu walked towards the pavilion and stood side by side with the other Qin Mu as they both looked at the jade pool's surface. Celestial Venerable Mu doesn't seem surprised at all. The other Qin Mu glanced at him and laughed. If I saw another one of myself, I would certainly scream in shock before eliminating him. In this world, I am unique. Qin Mu smiled back. If the celestial heavens can create more than 10 celestial venerable yous, it should be easy to create another me. This body was created in the celestial heavens patriarch creation palace, right? It looks like it was. However, even if they could create an exact copy of me, it would be outdated in the next moment. The other Qin Mu observed every action of his and imitated his actions and his tone before pointing out, the goal wasn't to create another you but to replace you. By doing so, you will die quietly while the other you still lives on. He imitated every minute action of Qin Mu's and vividly said, after you die, you will still live on as a leader of eternal peace's reform. You will still be Celestial Venerable Mu and remain in your accomplices' midst. Earth Count, Heaven Duke, and the others won't see any flaws. These ancient gods still want to preserve your life and expect the invincible great wizard to revive them. You gave these corrupt beings hope, yet you will have died unexpectedly. Qin Mu tilted his head, and his third eye emerged from his eyebrows. He inspected this body before saying, "You are Celestial Venerable how? You lost to me twice." The Qin Mu on the opposite side's pupils contracted, as an eye emerged between his eyebrows. It opened as fast as Qin Mu's third eye, a clear imitation of him. His eye's pupil was hexagonal too. It was clear that when Tao Ancestor examined Qin Mu, he did it in a detailed fashion, and ensured that every detail would be identical. From the clothes and accessories to the location and number of every hair, it was all exact. This was how serious a man Tao Ancestor was. The first time was during the first year of the Dragon Han era. In fact, it was at this exact location. Qin Mu was excited as he recalled the past. You were beaten to the point of becoming a dog that lost its family. You ran for your life as those under you tried to stop me and prevent me from killing you with their lives, but I killed them like one would chickens. Their blood and yours dyed the jade pool red, and your mother, Mistress Yuan Mu, had to project herself here to save you. However, in front of her, I still beat you until you were a dead dog. How long did it take you to recuperate? The opposite Qin Mu replied, medicine was undeveloped then. Celestial Emperor hired famous doctors to save me, but they were unable to do so. Nobody could heal your sword will and the sword wounds you inflicted. I laid in bed for more than 100 years, unable to eat or drink, relying on others to feed me. I couldn't control my urination or defecation, and could only do those things with the help of palace maids. During those years, I wanted to die more than once. I even prayed for others to kill me more than once. Qin Mu smiled. This was my reward for you. You laid in bed for around 100 years, yet Celestial Venerable you laid in his bed for more than 1,000,000 years. Afterwards, I slowly recuperated and was able to walk. It was then that I realized that my physical injuries had healed a long time ago. What didn't recover was my Tao heart. The opposite Qin Mu's pupils contracted, as the divine light in his eyes grew denser. After retracting his divine light, he plainly said, the injury to my Tao heart took longer to heal. Within the 1,000 years after that, I would always see your sword going through my body and your fist colliding with my body and crushing my bones and tendons whenever I closed my eyes. Qin Mu apologetically said, I should have killed you then so you wouldn't be tortured like this. The opposite Qin Mu coldly said, it took me 1,000 years to emerge from your shadow, but, after that, I knew that I was no longer the old me. I was then a mere knife in my father's hand that he used to get rid of the future potential rival to his position, Celestial Venerable you. You made me die once before giving me a new life. From then on, I swore to live for myself. He was still imitating every action of Qin Mu's as he continued. I started to become steady and impassive. I was an unremarkable prince amongst the other princes. After all, I was a failure, someone beaten by Celestial Venerable Mu as if I were a dead dog. Yet, the more I became like that, the more chances I got to prove myself. My father valued me more as a result. I helped him scheme to get rid of the crown prince and killed him. He was the son of Celestial Empress, and he had humiliated me before, taunting the fact that I was an illegitimate son, and someone beaten badly by Celestial Venerable Mu. Thus, I gave him the name of Xia Wuqi to shame him so he would be tortured in Yudu even after his death. Qin Mu saw the opposite Qin Mu smile as brightly as him. However, beneath this brightness were dense feelings of hatred, as well as satisfaction at avenging himself. After Xia Wuqi died, the princes with authority weren't my opponents. Some died, while some became injured. Some even had their Dao hearts collapse because of me. The other Qin Mu chuckled. My father felt that Celestial Venerable Yun and Celestial Venerable Ling were still a threat to the celestial heavens, so he planned on supporting a trusted aide against them to restrain them. Thus, he chose me. He could only choose me then. Consequently, I came to the primordial realm and established the Dragon Heaven Celestial Heavens to go against Celestial Venerable Yun and others, fighting to the death. However, I also established my own entourage, who allowed me to seek my cause. Qin Mu praised him. Celestial Venerable, how you grew up. It was all thanks to you. The other Qin Mu's smile grew to be purer. His smile glowed like a sun as it became that of a boy, and he said, I fought Celestial Venerable Yun for a long time, and the humans and life forms were too weak to be proper opponents of half-gods. Thus, to inspire confidence, he morphed into an image of you to fight me. How laughable. He couldn't help but say, I was indeed scared then, until I found out that Celestial Venerable Mu wasn't you. As great as his imitation was, he couldn't fool me. A vague expression somewhat akin to smiling and crying appeared on his face. Who could understand you like me? You were the devil who appeared in countless nightmares of mine. Celestial Venerable Yun was too naive to imitate you. Yet, I never exposed him in front of everyone and instead told him about my plan. Thus, I, the person you hate so much, joined the Heaven Alliance. I killed Celestial Venerable you, which made me hated universally by humans and you, but I still joined the Heaven Alliance and became one of its elders. This was because he wanted to deal with my father with me. He observed Qin Mu's expression in an attempt to find traces of disappointment from it, but none appeared. I conspired with him and designed a plan to get rid of my father. At the same time, I constantly placed half-gods inside the Heaven Alliance to fight against him. Not only did I want to get rid of my father, but I wanted the Heaven Alliance too. He smiled. I succeeded and he failed. It was a simple sentence, yet it contained a hair-raising past. Qin Mu smiled. Even if you succeeded, the Heaven Alliance still didn't fall into your control entirely. You experienced the second setback of your life, because of me, again. The opposite Qin Mu didn't deny it. In fact, he nodded. I had never seen your true appearance. I built Celestial Venerable you to become the strongest weapon, aiming to get rid of Mother Earth in the lower bound. Yet, I never knew that the great wizard who resurrected her was you. You used her to strike at me with the move that incapacitated me for more than 100 years. The shadow in my heart re-emerged, and I was thus hurt by Mother Earth. This was taken advantage of by humans, and as a result, I lost the primordial realm. However, That was a mere surprise attack. He seemed nonchalant about the past as he plainly said, "Today, your worth is no longer as great in my eyes. My cultivation has grown greatly, and I have a greater understanding of Tao. When I think about the battle at the Jade Pool now, it's merely for a laugh aimed at my youthful immaturity then." He gazed at the waves on the Jade Sea and leisurely said, "I don't hate you now. The hatred I express now is a mere smokescreen. You no longer have a place in my Tao heart. You are a mere tool for me to exploit." Additionally, a trace of a smile glowed on his face, and it grew and grew. "Additionally, you are dying today. I have staged a perfect death for you. Do you see those palace maids at the Jade Pool? During the night of the Jade Pool incident, the god officers and the army of gods and devils that were sent to announce the imperial decree were sent by me, and the palace maids were changed with my consent. Everyone, from the divine turtles that bear the divine mountains in the Jade Sea to the flower spirits in the lotuses, are my subordinates." He turned around with a sweeter smile on his face. "Your entourage was also drawn away by me. I placed people in the Yun residence, Red Deity residence, and South Deity residence. It was easy to draw them away. If I kill you here, nobody will know, not even Earth Count, or Heaven Duke will know that the real Celestial Venerable Mu has died." Qin Mu sighed. "Celestial Venerable, how? I didn't know that your stratagem was so deep. It seems that I can hardly escape. It's just that, this Celestial Venerable Mu that you created, are you sure that it's my opponent?" He smiled. "You put in so much effort to create this Celestial Venerable Mu and ensure that it's exactly the same as me. In order to ensure that you don't raise the suspicions of the other Celestial Venerables and the ancient gods, you had to ensure that he was at the Divine Bridge Realm too. Such a body can't tolerate your primordial spirit, for it's too strong. You can only use a shred of consciousness to control this body. However, I have killed many Divine Bridge Realm practitioners and ruined 2 weapons that are akin to yours." The other Qin Mu's smile was as bright as the sun, which was chilling to see. In such a short time, he achieved such a great degree of similarity that one would have a hard time telling the difference. "You underestimate my accomplishments during these million years. During this time, I analyzed and fought with you countless times in the depth of my consciousness. You and I have actually fought billions of times." He laughed without restraint. "In the past, you won more than you lost, but as I grew, the chances of you winning declined. By the founding emperor era, I had defeated you. After that, every time I fought you in my consciousness, I was merely experimenting with the simplest way to kill you. By the High Emperor era, I only needed one move to kill you." Self-confidence brimmed out of him as he smiled and said, "I arranged the move to kill you, and it's called the 100 Move to Kill Mu. It contains 100 divine arts, and by today, in my consciousness, you will have died before you strike." Qin Mu's pupils contracted. His aura grew dramatically as his sword pellet flew out. When he struck, he used the second move of Raising Calamity Sword. At the Jade Pool meeting then, he used this move to heavily injure Celestial Venerable Hao while he was under the projection of Mistress Yuanmu to the point where he couldn't take care of himself unless helped. Now, this Raising Calamity move was even more powerful with even more changes to its moves. Raising Calamity was a sword path, but also a basic sword skill known as the 19th sword form, which could be combined with any other sword skills. There were nearly infinite amounts of changes. Unexpectedly, before the potential of Qin Mu's sword was unleashed, the attack of the other Qin Mu arrived. The sword stabbed out as the light broke the Raising Calamity sword, which tapped on the heart of Qin Mu's eyebrows. Nothing changed on Qin Mu's brows, yet the back of his brain exploded. An expression of disbelief appeared on his face as his body shook and fell to the ground. His 2 legs tangled together, and after some body spasms, he was no longer breathing. The other Qin Mu slowly retracted his finger, and said plainly, killing you was that simple. It only took one finger. How lonely. He looked at the peaceful Jade Sea, and on it, Qin Mu walked towards him. The other Qin Mu stood in the pavilion with his hands behind him as he awaited his arrival. He watched Qin Mu approach him until he was beside him, looking out at the sea. Celestial Venerable Mu doesn't seem surprised at all. He glanced at Qin Mu and laughed. If I saw another one of myself. He frowned slightly, feeling that something was wrong. In the real world, Qin Mu sat behind him and poured a cup of tea for himself. He raised the cup to his mouth and commented, "It's not a bad move. I would hardly be able to defend against it unless I used my life to take yours." Celestial Venerable How has certainly grown. Part 381 end here. Thank you for watching.